Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. Today, it's a special show about death, love, family, life, eternal bonds of love. We need to think about death at least once a day, said Joana de Angelis through Divaldo Franco in a beautiful event in 2006 when he was in Baltimore, Maryland, together with Dr. Raymond Moody Jr., talking about hope and grief. When we talk about the loss of loved ones, we can tell that even science, with psychological insights as much as biomedical ones, we know it's a very distressing time of our lives. What do? Are they really lost? Well, the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec addressed also this question. This book that is, let's say, as Joseph the Mentor says, the constitution of our souls, the manual so we can understand the human mind. In question 934, the educator, codifier, researcher of spirit phenomena, and much more than that, Allan Kardec, in Paris, France in 1857, asked the minds of the beyond, the wise ones, doesn't the loss of loved ones cause us suffering and act as a legitimate source of sorrow, since such loss is both irreparable and independent of our will? And the answer of the illuminated spirits through the mediums of the time to Allan Kardec was, this cause of sorrow strikes both the rich and the poor. It comprises a trial or an atonement and a law for all. It is a consolation, however, to be able to communicate with your friends through the means available to you, while awaiting other ways that are more direct and accessible to your senses. This universal truth was also in the mind of Buddha when the story tells that a woman who had just lost her little baby, she was carrying this dead baby on her arms, completely distraught by the feelings of the loss of this newborn baby. And she saw the Buddha. She came to see him and ask, please bring him back to life. I know you've been performing lots of good things to people, helping them out. Please bring my baby back. The Buddha, in a very compassionate way, he turned to the woman and said, let's do the following. First, you're going to go back to your village and knock on every door of this village. And when you knock on each and every door, you ask whether or not that family has already lost a loved one. When you find a family in which this phenomenon of life hasn't happened, come back to me and I will restore the life of your baby. And we know the end of the story. She figured out that, as Allan Kardec learned from the Spirit and shared with us in the Spirit's book, they say it's a law for all. We need to think about the time in which we're going to go be called back to the spirit realm. Our titles, our roles don't matter. They will not matter anymore, but the ties of affection, the real ties, not the ones of ego, but the ones of true affection, they will remain. Not the ones in which we simply please people so they like us. No, because Jesus didn't do that. Jesus wasn't here pleasing us, because if he were, people wouldn't crucify him. And he said, the ones that follow my path will be crucified, the ones that bring the truth, the ones that are truly sincere, the ones that really care about the long run of life, not only about the temporary roles of this life. And that's what happens in this life. Today, our children are here with us. Tomorrow, either will depart before them or vice versa. This is the story of the Petrillo Knobloch family. When Ricardo was here and suddenly he was called back to the spiritual realm. The parents, Claudio Petrillo and Sylvia Knobloch, are honoring us today with their presence in Kardec Radio. They are here to tell us more, not only about this event in their lives, but to teach us the outcome of it, what they've done with their suffering, so we can learn more about how to live better. This is the show about eternal bonds of love. Dr. Claudio Petrillo is a physician, and he has been so for more than 35 years. He's also the chairman of the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation at Norwalk Hospital in Connecticut. And he has never been written a book, either professionally or privately, before receiving the inspirational, or let's say in Spiritism we say mediumistic writings from his own son. And his wife, Ricardo Petrillo's mom, Sylvia Knobloch. Dr. Sylvia Knobloch is also a physician, and she has been practicing medicine for more than 24 years. She is a senior attending physician in the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation at Norwalk Hospital in Connecticut. Ricardo Petrillo, Knobloch Petrillo, their son, was born in 1985 and he passed away in 2005. He was at the time in college in Connecticut. He was a member of the Tau Kappa Epsilon fraternity, and in the afterlife, he became this leading force of our youth. And Dr. Knobloch and Petrillo will tell you more about this story. But before we bring them into the show, we want to share with you that pretty soon, in October 22nd, the Texas Spiritist Movement is going to be sponsoring the first Texas Spiritist Symposium. And on November the 19th, which is a Saturday, the Spiritist Movement in Chicago is going to be sponsoring its first Spiritist Seminar of Chicago. Both events are being supported by the United States Spiritist Council. And this coming September 25th, we have the third Spiritist Forum of New York with the presence of Dr. Claudio Petrillo and Sylvia Knobloch, ourselves, and also the keynote speaker, Dr. Stephen Post. It's all about the science of being good. It's about how good it is to be good. And this show today, The Eternal Bonds of Love, is also about how important it is for us to bring this new awareness in life. Kardec Radio is here for you to share the good news about life, to share that we are here to promote a new understanding. We know that when we turn on the radio stations, sometimes it's very disturbing because the news, people make money sharing sad news. Where are the good news? We know there are many people like Drs. Petrillo and Knobloch that are doing phenomenal work. But where does it get to be streamed and shared? Here at Kardec Radio. And our Kardec Radio is in more than 42 countries. Not only that, but it is in the United States taking over the grounds of the United States of America. We have already gone to 43 states, and if you know anybody in the following states, share with them that Kardec Radio is here for them as well, because we need to have listeners in all of its states. So if you know somebody in New Mexico, Maine, Idaho, Montana, Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota, share with them that Kardec Radio is here for them, because then we are going to enlight this country with the light of Kardec Radio. And to kickstart this beautiful program on this family that remains united despite death, we're going to open it with a beautiful message by Chico Xavier. Actually, it's Emmanuel through Chico Xavier. It is entitled Wait and Love Always, and it's in the CD published by the Spirit Society of Baltimore, named Enlightening Messages. Let us listen to this and get inspired.
Wait and love always. Much affliction will be cut at the root if you learn how to smile in silence. Many grudges will be forgotten if you forgive the iniquity you implore for the peace of the Lord. But the Lord equally awaits your participation in the peace of others. Reflect on the needs of your brother before you criticize his thoughtless deeds. Oftentimes, the aggressiveness with which he hurts you is only his anguish, and the rude word which he uses to return your care is nothing but the wound in his heart poisoning his mouth. Aid 1,000 times before you disapprove only once. The swamp admits ailing currents, for it did not find hands to dry it out. And the desert brings on thirst and suffering, for it did not receive the morning dew. Allow mercy to develop into silent help in your heart, so that pain may fade away. Do not fuel the fire of evil with a dry log of irritation and hate. Wait and love always. In silence, the prune tree multiplies its own fruits, and the sky, overtaken by the nocturnal shadows, reveals the glory of the stars. Think of Christ, our silent friend. Without demands or self-acclaim, he wrote the immortal poems of forgiveness and love, hope and happiness in the heart of the earth. Let's make him our model in our daily struggles, and by tolerating and helping today in this short human existence, we will reap tomorrow the blessings of the silent light, which will show us the ways to eternal life.
Dear listener, if you like this message, there is much more. On the CD, Enlightening Messages by Francisco Xavier is a medium. Many different spirits, from Emmanuel to May May and many others, bring beautiful prayers, messages, stories to inspire your day. Buy it. Listen to it while you're driving, at your home, and build a new life for yourself and your loved ones. Talking about loved ones, we're going to give a short break and come back with Dr. Silvano Plock and Claudio Petrillo to tell us more about their moving story and the beautiful aftermath of their first distress in their lives. We'll be right back.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio. Eternal Bonds of Love is a poignant account of a young man's afterlife experiences after his death at age 20. Ricardo passed after an accidental fall at college on September 18, 2005. He started communicating through written messages to his father on July 2006. In July 2007, he communicated to his parents that they would be writing a book together to be finished and published in 1 year's time. And so they did. You will find in this unusual book Ricardo's story about his experiences, feelings, emotions, and spiritual development in the first 2 years after his untimely and unexpected passing. Eternal Bonds of Love is comforting, hopeful, and inspiring, and teaches us that true love has no boundaries, no limits, that time and space are illusions, and that love binds us together eternally wherever we are. Purchase this book by visiting the SSB online bookstore at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Join us every Thursday live, Evolution in Two Worlds, a journey of the soul through the teachings of the Spirit Doctor, Andrea Luiz. Connect at www.tvcei.com, Channel 2.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Enrich your spiritual senses and deepen your foundations of Spiritism with the book, What is Spiritism? By Allan Kardec. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
And now we return to our program.
Lives, so many thousands of lives, all intertwined as if merging. Memories of lives, my lives, who knows? They blend, become one, many. This is an excerpt of Claudio Petrillo's poem in the book Eternal Romeo. The book was produced in a very beautiful manner, something that probably Spiritism is the only source to explain the mechanisms of this book publication. We have Claudio Petrillo and Silvano Plock as Ricardo's parents to tell us more about how this came to life. We are honored to have Dr. Petrillo and Dr. Plock here with us. They're good friends of ours, and they are amazing spiritists who have brought a lesson for all of us, a teaching. Hi, Claudio and Sylvia. Welcome to Kardec Radio. Thank you for being with us.
It's a privilege to be with you today, Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa, and good morning to all.
Thank you for being here. We're so deeply touched by the story of Ricardo and yourselves. We would like to ask you if you could kindly share with us the story of Ricardo and especially the event in 2005 and what happened later.
Yes, Vanessa, I would like to, for our listeners to understand a little bit, I'll give a little bit of background of how I met Claudio and how we came to be calling ourselves Spiritists, if we may.
Sure.
I was born and raised in Brazil, and actually I was raised in the Jewish faith. And it was not until much later, when I was 18 or 19, that I lost a very good friend, and I could not really explain through my Jewish traditions what was happening, and I was seeking answers. And I found the Spiritist doctrine, and through reading the books of Kardec, I found the answers that I needed to grieve or to accept the death of this friend. So I had started studying it before I even met Claudio. Soon after, I moved to the United States where I had met him, and we got married, and brought the Spiritist doctrine ideas into our lives, and Claudio embraced it immediately, and we started studying and practicing the doctrine of Spiritism. And that went on for a number of years. In 1985, as you said, Ricardo was born. And even the first several years of his life, we were able to continue to practice and study and even do a little bit of writing through what the philosophy that we had embraced. And then I guess some of the listeners already know, with Ricardo's passing in 2005, we at that time had a very busy life. We had adopted another 2 children, and we had kind of let our practices with Spiritism drift away, unfortunately. Our lives became very busy, very involved with our profession of 2 doctors and 3 children in the house, and we unfortunately stopped practicing until 2005 when Ricardo passed. We were shattered, we were shocked, we didn't know where to turn to, and as if in a magic moment something came to us and said, where are you looking for answers? How come you think you don't know how to deal with this? There's your Spiritist doctrine right there, which you have abandoned for 15 years. And we immediately turned back into our studies again. And as you're going to hear in the next several minutes, our lives changed.
That's amazing, the story. And as you said, you were so blessed that you had a foundation to go back to. And we always think like about the people that don't have this resource. They have never come across these consoling teachings to go back to. So would you say that the Spiritism was the main resource to help you during the process of grieving? How was this grieving process, especially, and how were they in different phases, as Dr. Kübler-Ross used to describe, or because of Spiritism you could tell that you were fast-tracked into the process of grieving? How was it?
There is no question in our minds that our beliefs in the Spiritist doctrine really very quickly got us out of a situation that it was unbearable. I think I tell in the preface of Eternal Bones of Love that we had an amazing experience during Ricardo's wake. One of our cousins who has some mediumistic skills sensed the presence of Ricardo. And right then and there, with thousands of people waiting to say hello to us, we had a mini meeting where they were telling us, Ricardo is here next to you, and he passed a message to us, which we didn't even absorb entirely at the moment, but it was transformative. Even at that moment, with Ricardo's body there in front of us and all his friends and all these people coming around, we already had a transformative experience. So that very moment, it was a change. There had been 3 days before that moment where we were totally devastated. You can't sleep, you can't eat, you can't talk to each other, but 3 days later our lives changed. So it was right then and there the Spiritist doctrine and the gift that we had of having this experience, which started the process of regenerating our souls, really.
So, Claudia and Sylvia, when you talked about the difficulties of the grieving process, you reminded me of a true account. One day during my vacation, I was visiting somebody, and they were watching the Oprah show, and she was talking about the loss of loved ones, and she brought in a couple who had 3 very young children and talked about their story. The story of these 3 children who were on the back seat of the car with the mom and the grandmother. It was in California, and there's that very heavy traffic, and it was almost like bump to bump, when suddenly a truck just smashed the back of the car. So you can tell that the 3 children died right there. And the parents, as you said, they couldn't sleep, they couldn't eat, they could barely talk to each other. And they made a pact with each other that none of them would quit life despite the hardships of those moments. They would stay there for one another. Could you tell that there were times in which the two of you, can you tell that Spiritism also helped you in the process of making you also stay very united in this process, despite of the moments in which you were tuned out due to the pain?
From the very beginning, we stayed closer than ever, Sylvia and I. And there was never, we always been very close since we met each other. But what I think our pact was is that we decided that after becoming aware of Ricardo's presence through our cousin, that we would go back to studying the studies that we had left and other philosophies of the world, of the past. And we dedicated every night since to our studies. We reread all the Pentateuch of Allan Kardec and other philosophies, as I said, and that commitment was giving us peace, was giving us the strength to face our day-to-day, to help our patients, to help ourselves becoming better people, better doctors. And I think by doing that, we felt the help that we were receiving from our mentors. And that is like a snowball. We still miss him very much. His physical body, his presence, we feel like hugging him, smelling him, talking to him. But we do talk. We know he is with us now. And that strength was acquired through also a process of self-discipline, never allowing ourselves to become desperate.
Yes, he certainly is around, and very happy that this message is being shared. And so you could tell that your relationship with Ricardo, your son, was redefined in this new interaction with him in the spiritual realm.
There is no question about that. It's hard to explain, but I know that the parents that are listening to us will understand that when we know our kids are around and we see them and we fight and we have fun and we joke and we know they're going to be there tomorrow, and sometimes we take it for granted and we maybe feel that we are too busy to be with them, or we want to do something for ourselves, and we have that certainty they're going to be there. And once you don't have that certainty, or once you've lost a child like we have, we were able to go back and see how the relationship was, which was very strong. We were very close, but there are times that your child is with their friends or they're doing their own things as well. Once that's removed, the relationship that we have now is just, it's better. It's amazing that I'm saying that, but that's what we've talked about. We know he's with us all the time. We know that we are in spirit and mind with him all the time. We don't have anymore those moments where we say, oh, I wish I could be on a vacation or doing something else, and now I have to find somebody to be with my child. All those things that you go back to and you feel bad about, but then you realize that there is no space and time, that we are together all the time. Anytime we feel we want to communicate with him, we sense his presence. Of course, we have dedicated times where we sit down and we receive his messages and write the books, and what we feel is something we can't describe, but we know the love is there, it is strong, and it will be there forever. We also realize that we are old souls. We look at those children and we think that we're here to mold them and change them and make them what we want them to be. And then we realize that's not true. They may be older souls than we are. Here, listen, we are talking about Ricardo writing books through his father, teaching us. He is teaching us. So he, in a sense, is our professor, our master at this point. So it's a very interesting shift, not only redefining the fact that you have to get used not to having the person next to you and looking at them and touching them, but also the fact that they have a lot to teach us and that they've been through many experiences, through other lives, other incarnations. They have a baggage that when they're children, of course, we can't perceive, and that we learn together. We learn with our children as much as we learn or they learn with us. And certainly we can say we're learning a lot with our son through the private communications and through the books and redefining what we consider to be barriers or presence. You know, there are various forms of presence, but certainly at this point, when people ask me how many children you have, that's a question that's a very tough question for parents that have lost their children. And in the beginning, I would debate with myself, should I say I have 2 or should I say I have 3? And I've come beyond, and I do say I have 3 because clearly he's part of our life. He's with us, and we have an amazing relationship in a totally different realm, but it is there. So definitely.
So Sylvia, you could almost tell that you rediscovered your son since
yes.
the afterlife, right?
Absolutely.
That's interesting because many people actually think that death is the end, and when they think even if it continues, we don't learn anything on the beyond. Could you tell that Ricardo also is learning in the afterlife?
I think you can see that on the books that he has written, every book that comes, and we are writing book number 8 now. The process of his growth is clear in the books because we move very slowly. We move day by day, minute by minute in this space-time reality that we live, and as he tells us in his books, he has no impediments. There are no physical barriers. Therefore, every moment, and that moment, of course, is not described as we perceive it. It's constant spiritual growth and knowledge growth. So he speaks as an old soul now. That's how we look at it. It's actually, in a sense, funny to us when we still tend to think of him like he was at age 20, living with us, and here he's writing these things, and we say, how does he know that? Where did he learn that? And then we realize, of course, this is what the process is like. You know, there's growth everywhere.
Exactly, and this is for us a good reference to go back to the Spirit's book and reminds us of when the Spirit taught us that we are more than what we appear to be in this life. We have experiences that are just like a computer. You may have files after files, different softwares, and maybe right now you're in front of your computer and you're running like one software and you're running like 2-3 files, but you have like 100 softwares there on in the hard drive and tons of files related to it. So it doesn't come as a surprise to us spiritists, but to the major public, it is surprising. So Claudia and Sylvia will give just one short break, and we'll be right back with you to understand a little more or much more about so many things in this new relationship with Ricardo. We'll be right back.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book, And Life Goes On, by the Spirit André Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral, digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Come and listen to our CD, Unfolding Our Spiritual Nature, Path of Harmony, by Dr. Raul Teixeira. The CD has questions and answers on euthanasia, suicide, pain relief, past life therapy, prayer and better attunement, law and affinity, the spirit world, raising our thoughts, and much more. You can purchase the CD by visiting SSB Online Bookstore at www.ssbaltimore.org.
And now we return to our program.
Is it a problem to communicate with our loved ones in the beyond? This was the question of Allan Kardec to the Spirits in the Spirits Book 900, question 935. And the answer is fantastic because it matches so much with what happened to the lives of the family Knopfloch and Petrillo. They said, the illuminated spirits, there can be no sacrilege where there is reverence, and when the evocation is made with respect and propriety. The proof of this is that the spirits who have affection for you take pleasure in coming to you, and they rejoice in being remembered and in being able to converse with you. There would only be sacrilege if evocations were made frivolously. So we are here sharing the moving story of Dr. Stephen Knopfloch and Dr. Claudio Petrillo, the parents of Ricardo Petrillo, Knopfloch Petrillo. When Ricardo passed away in his 20s in 2005, and the lives of everyone changed, including ours, because what happened to them also brought us new awareness. It not only confirmed, but it shows to us firsthand how consoling the teachings of Spiritism can be, how guiding, how unforeseen consolation can be brought to our lives. So, Claudio and Sylvia, as you were explaining to us before, you rediscovered your son and redefined your relationship with him. Now, how, for going from there to realizing that you, Claudio, were a medium, that you were able not only to feel the presence, but directly receive messages from your son. Could you tell us how did that happen and how you felt the whole process and how you actually, let's say, quote unquote, surrendered to the process?
Well, I think we have to go back many years ago, in 1982, when we joined a small group of Spiritists in New York, a group that ultimately ended up being the Allan Kardec Educational Society. And in those meetings, we made some attempts of writing, and we received some messages then. And there were nice messages of a positive nature. And then when we became more distant from our doctrine, obviously we didn't make any attempts to continuing to practice and to develop the skills. So after Ricardo's passing and we dedicated ourselves to our studies, we decided that we would first reread the Medium's book, which is now completing 150 years.
Yes.
And it's a tremendously valuable text about the mediumistic abilities and pros and cons, and that gave us confidence to again begin to write. Approximately 6 months after his passing, we then went back to once or twice a week in our regular meetings and started receiving some messages again. And they were encouraging messages, and they were beautiful messages. And for Sylvia and I, we were doing it together. It didn't really matter that much. It was consoling to us, and that's what we needed that for. So when approximately 9 months later, in July of 2006, we received the first message from Ricardo, which was almost a stuttering message, and we were surprised because we didn't make any evocation. We weren't expecting anything. We were both incredibly shocked and pleased, and we couldn't contain ourselves of happiness. We both knew it was him. And then a couple of weeks later, we got a second message where it was a little better. It's like someone learning how to write. I mean, the words would come in almost stuttering, as I said. And we decided that, we had the fortune of meeting Divaldo Franco a few weeks later, and we asked him, is this our son? And he, in a mostly matter-of-fact manner, said, of course he is. If you told me that Mother Teresa was writing to you, I'd say, well, why would she? But who would want to write to you? So that was very reassuring, and then we continued receiving his messages from then on. And as of today, it is quite fluent. It's like one hand is writing, and sure, mine is assisting. There's no doubt that I know that there is some influence from me. It's not completely automatic writing like mediums like Divaldo Franco and Chico Xavier, where I receive the message aware of what I'm receiving, not aware of the content necessarily. But as we practice with regularity, it has become more and more fluent, and I don't think there is any end to it.
That's really interesting. You're talking about being conscious of the process, right? And as you said, a good reminder that this year we're celebrating 150 years of the Medium's book, a book that certainly, as Dr. Petrillo is sharing with us, has helped him in a new phase of his life after great distress and opening a beautiful, beautiful opportunity for you and for all. So in this process of allowing Ricardo to bring the messages, because according to the Spirit's book, it should be natural. And it's natural because the ones who love us will be around us. And if we are sensible mediums, we're going to perceive it more clearly. And then came Eternal Bonds of Love. When Ricardo brought you Eternal Bonds of Love, what was his goal?
He didn't tell us about his goal. He mentioned that, almost like a command, said, well, we are going to start writing a book. And he, as you mentioned in the introduction, the book will be completed in 1 year. And there wasn't a specific plan or goal written or explicitly said to us on that. So we basically started the writings with, I think one thing that I can't overemphasize enough is the discipline of the process, because it is a process of practice, and having that discipline, you are allowing the superior spirits that are actually guiding the production of the book. and Ricardo acknowledged that. That's not only his book.
Exactly.
It's been guided, and there are things that are actually censored by the higher spirits in there. So it's not completely just a free relationship and passing of information.
And you're saying this because these are characteristics of a higher plan. Because when loved ones simply come to communicate as the Spirit's book says, for frivolous purposes, etc., you won't feel these, let's say, the restrictions or the discipline, etc. So you two basically, I remember visiting you in your home and you telling us about how disciplined you two became in the process of meeting the spirits and Ricardo, studying Spiritism very thoroughly every day, and customizing your life, tailoring it around this new process. Are we right?
Yes, I think that that gave also a new meaning in our lives as we look forward those moments after work when we come down to our room and start our studies, and then that's followed with messages, whether from the books that he's writing or from personal messages. We look forward nowadays, like we miss it if we have, if for some reasons we are not able to come to our own secluded spot.
So basically, did he notify you that more books would come, or did he let you know as you were volunteering to step into the process? Did he tell you beforehand, oh, now, almost 6 years later, 6 books, 8 books, right? 8 books. Did he tell you?
Yeah, he did. Once we completed Eternal Bonds of Love, he just told us about the next book to come. And in a subsequent message, he said something very interesting. He said, people will continue to doubt about the process of writing those books for the first, second, and third, but when you write the 20th book, they'll begin to take you seriously. So that is obviously meant suggesting that we might write 20 books. And from our perspective, he can write as many as he wants, because that's giving us a lot of comfort.
So you can tell that he became an educator because of being so persistent and determined to continue this pathway. You can tell because he is very persistent. If he were a teenager, he would probably have given up and said, you know what, people don't believe it, let me quit and do something else better with my life. But it seems that he really, as Silvia mentioned to us before, he displays a very mature personality for, quote unquote, the age in which he passed away.
In the book Eternal Romeo, it's really mind blowing to us because it is a different version of the history of Romeo and Juliet, as you know, and that's immense love and the love story of all times, I would say. And we are reading as he's writing, because of course we read a chapter a day as he's writing, and we're reading him and thinking what is going to come next,
Mm-hmm.
and then we read those passages and the dialogues between Romeo and Juliet and this amazing love, and we're saying, he was only 20. We know for a fact that he never experienced that love in his life, and how could he portray that with such poetry and such beauty? to bring tears to our eyes and other people that have read it. And so we know that, of course, somebody has to experience those emotions to be able to write that. And that's the amazing thing to us. Is, of course, he has experienced that love in that form in some other lifetime to be able to express it that way.
That's interesting. So what you're saying reminds us of a heaven and hell case in some way and form about the maturity that can be displayed by somebody that physically can be quite young, but only later on in the afterlife we get to know why that person was so polished and different. So Claude and Sylvia would like us to introduce to the public this heaven and hell case that we shall listen to now. Let us listen to it, dear listener.
The Servants, Story of a Domestic Servant by Allan Kardec.
The case reported in latest magazine under the title of The Hut and the Salon, December 1862, reminds us of another somewhat personal story. On one trip we did 2 years ago, we saw in a family of high society a very young servant whose face, slim and smart, impressed us by his air of distinction. Nothing in his manner denoted inferiority. His dedication to the service of the employers had no such servile way, characteristic of people in such a condition. Returning to the family the following year, and no longer seeing the boy, we asked if he had been fired.
No,
They replied.
He went back to his homeland for a few days and passed away. We are very sorry, because he was a great person and had noble sentiments above his social position. He was very close to us, and he had given us evidence of great devotion.
Later came the idea of evoking the boy. Here's what he told us.
In my last incarnation, I was, as they say, on earth, from a good family, though ruined by the reckless splurges of my father. I became an orphan with no resources, and still very young, Mr. G was my benefactor. He raised me as a son and gave me a good education, which flattered me. During the last existence, I wanted to expiate my pride, being born in a servile condition. I found here opportunity to prove my dedication to my benefactor. I even saved his life without him even noticing. It was at the same time a test, which I benefit from, because I had enough strength for not getting corrupted by contact with an ambient, almost always vicious. Despite the bad examples, I became pure, so I thank God for having been rewarded by the happiness I enjoy.
Under what circumstances have you saved the life of Mr. G?
During a horseback ride, I just followed him. I noticed a large tree that was falling beside him that he didn't see. I let out a terrible cry. He retreated sharply while the tree was falling at his feet. Without the provoked movement, he would have been crushed.
Note, the event was reported to Mr. G, who remembered it perfectly. Why did you die so young?
God had judged my atonement satisfactory.
How could you benefit from it if you didn't keep the memory of your previous existence and the cause for the motivation?
In my humble position, I still had an instinct of pride that I was lucky enough to overcome. This made the test very useful. Otherwise, I would have to restart it. In their moments of freedom, my spirit remembered, and upon awakening, there was an intuitive desire to resist my tendencies, which I felt being harmful. This way, fighting without clearly recalling the past, I acquired more merits. a disturbing memory of my former position would have exalted my pride, while I just had to fight the drags of the new position.
You received a brilliant education. How did it serve you in the last existence if you did not recall the acquired knowledge?
This knowledge would have been useless, even counterproductive in my new situation. It stayed dormant, and today I recovered it. However, it was not useless because it developed my intelligence. I instinctively had a taste for elevated matters. What inspired the repulse for low and despicable examples I had under my eyes? Without that education, I would not have been more than a simple servant.
The examples of domestic servants who are dedicated to the employers, to the ethnic nation, is because of previous relationships?
Do not doubt it. It is at least the most common case. Sometimes these servants are family members, or, like me, grateful beings who pay a debt of gratitude and devotion, which helps them progress. You have no idea the effects of sympathies and apathies that these previous relationships produce in the world. No, death does not stop these relationships that often perpetuate themselves from one century to another.
Why have such examples of dedications of servants become so rare these days?
We shall blame the spirit of selfishness and pride of your century, developed by unbelief and by materialistic ideas. True faith disappears by the greed and the desire to win, with it the dedication, leading men back to the feeling of truth. Spiritism will revive the forgotten virtues.
Note, there is nothing better than this example to highlight the benefits of forgetfulness of previous existences. If Mr. G had remembered who had been his young servant, he would have been very embarrassed and would not have kept him in that condition, hindering thus the test, which was beneficial to both.
This article was first published by Allan Kardec on the Review Spirit in 1863.
Dear listener, tremendous surprise takes place in our mind at the moment of death. Contrary to our own former opinions, we are alive. The body came back to the inorganic kingdom as subject of universal change, and we recognize that death is actually a rebirth. So these are words from Ernest O'Brien in chapter 42 of the book Among Brothers of Other Lands by the medium Chico Xavier. Many spirits brought messages when Chico Xavier was traveling to the United States for first time in his life in 1965. This is actually the reality. Death can be a rebirth. Claudio and Sylvia, they are here with us, the parents of Ricardo Petrillo. They are here sharing the moving story of how their lives changed after the passing of Ricardo. They rediscovered their son. Not only that, they redefined their relationship. And with that, many good things happened. Claudio and Sylvia, could you tell that in this relationship with Ricardo, after his passing, you rediscovered also yourselves in the sense of awareness of your connections to him from many lives?
I think that both Claudio and I have felt in different ways the kinds of bonds that we imagine we may have formed in the past lives. But there's one thing that we are absolutely sure, that the three of us have been together before. And we know this. It's hard to explain. It's intuition. It's an emotion. It's a feeling. It's a certainty. But what we have passed through, the three of us, we always include him as passing through the same experience of grieving, and I think that becomes very clear in Eternal Bonds of Love and a lot of people have come to us and say that, this is what you get a lot from this book, is this very strong love that was there between the three of you. Some people say we even feel like we're invading our privacy when you're reading your book. But of course, that was Ricardo's intent, to share that with the world, that these firm bonds, these very strong bonds of love, they survive centuries, millennia, lives, and certainly death. And that's, I think, becomes very clear in his poems of where he explores past experiences in this life where the love was kind of the main fire of this relationship, despite, being parents and children. So that book, I think it shows us more than anything else what we're capable of as human beings, both in life and after death, in different realms of vibration, that this will endure and this will continue. And I think he wanted to share that with his friends and with the world, and leave that's possible. That's
So Sylvia and Claudio, how much of this experience and the new lifestyle that you've started in your lives impacted on your professional lives?
Oh, tremendously, no doubt. I've been a physician now for 39 years, and there's no doubt that in the past 6, a lot has changed. We have learned to learn with our patients, with the staff that surround us. We've become much more compassionate in many ways. We've always been very, very connected and compassionate in our professions, but that was a tremendous change that was observed by both the large number of staff, therapists, and nurses that work with us, but also by our patients. It was a significant change, and in the specialty we work, it helps them tremendously. It's a specialty in which empathy, understanding is very, very important. Not that other specialties this isn't important, but it has transformed our professional lives, given a different direction. The level of professional competence remains the same, but that aspect has added an enormous dimension to the potential that we can achieve with our patients.
I think also it gives us an understanding. Every time we see a patient, certainly happens with me, I look at that patient, at that person, in a very different way. So instead of looking and seeing this individual is coming here because either they're in pain or they have a disability or whatever is their diagnosis, and this is what I'm treating, I'm looking and trying to imagine in my mind, who is this person? Where are they coming from? What kind of life they've had? What is the reason why they're suffering like that now? There is a purpose for what they're going through. And I think realizing that, I think that whenever there is an opening, that some patients are more open to discuss spiritual issues, to try and teach them or understand or explain that there is a purpose even for suffering sometimes. It may be a lesson, maybe a test they have to go through, test their resilience and their faith and so on. And I think that gives such a different dimension to the treatment. So we're just not treating the body anymore. We're treating the individual in all areas that they are, body, spirit, and mind.
That's interesting. And we could almost tell that due to these events in your lives and thanks to this new relationship with Ricardo, you have become, we could say, advocates for this reinvention of medicine, as says Dr. Larry Dossey, who, by the way, is going to be at Cardiac Radio on Thanksgiving weekend, November the 26th. He's going to talk about his book, The Power of Premonitions. So Claudia and Sylvia, in 2008, you organized this unforgettable event with Dr. Bernie Siegel and Divaldo Franco in Norwalk, Connecticut. We were there with Daniel Santos and many people of the Spiritist movement. Majority, there were around like 1,000 people there in the town hall auditorium, and sponsored by the Hospital of Norwalk. So that event, we could tell, is one of the many positive outcomes of this experience that you had with Ricardo. You became true advocates of this reinvention of medicine, right?
Yes, that we redirected the groundwork on which our mission as physicians are. And added the dimension of spirit to it very significantly. But, regarding that event, I think what's interesting to me is that what I've learned is that if you just open yourself to the higher realms of wisdom, you become an instrument of their will. We didn't have any idea or intention of organizing this meeting. It just happened that when attending a symposium given by Divaldo Franco in Salvador by the celebration of his 80th birthday, we noted that throughout the day he was discussing Dr. Bernie Siegel's work. And at the break, we asked Divaldo, almost in a non-serious manner, because Bernie Siegel is almost a neighbor of ours. What if we organize a meeting with you and Dr. Siegel in the United States? And he not only took it seriously, but after the break, he announced before a public of almost 3,000 people that we were committed to organizing that meeting, and that he would be there. He would be there either alive or discarnate. He would be there no matter what. So that was a major. We had to take it seriously, and we didn't have to make any significant effort, but just we contacted Dr. Siegel, and the doors were opening. The doors were being opened for us. The hospital sponsored without any problems. It was a very smooth sail until the project was concluded, and it was very successful. We, as you said, we had over 1,000 people, but it wasn't planned by us. I think there was a higher plan, as many things have, and I think we learned with that also to try to remain open to what that we can do for them.
So, Claudio, we will go back to that experience with Divaldo Franco and Bernie Siegel, because it was so. There are so many highlights from that moment. And by the way, for the people who hadn't had a chance to be there, the DVD is kindly being produced by the Spirit Society of Baltimore with the permission of Dr. Petrillo, Noel Plock, Bernie Siegel, and Divaldo Franco, and it's entitled Medicine and Spirituality. If you want, you just go to ssbaltimore.org and you can order it online. But the messages that Ricardo has been bringing, it serves general public. It's not restricted to youth alone. But it seems as well that Ricardo feels compelled to teach youth. And he participated in the Tau Kappa Epsilon fraternity. And I remember you and Sylvia mentioning about what happened in this relationship after his passing. Can you share with our listeners the beautiful story on how Ricardo is reaching out to his friends and colleagues and the new generations of this fraternity as well?
Right. From the beginning, Ricardo had told us through his writings, Claudio's writings, that we needed to reach out to his friends, to the fraternity, that as it is common at this time, youth at this age may be many instances of depression. They are somewhat lost. There's so much going on in the world, and so it was at the time of his passing that there were problems with his fraternity, which of course we wouldn't know, and he told us that in some of the messages. So when we communicated with his friends, we didn't know how to approach them initially, how to tell them our son who's passed is communicating with us and is passing a message to you. We thought for sure they're going to think we're delirious. But as soon as we approached them and said, this is what's happening to us, our son is communicating, and we have a message for your fraternity from him, and we read this message. He had actually a letter to them, and they were completely dumbfounded. They said that absolutely this is Ricardo. This is how he would talk to us, and of course the problems he was talking about that were happening with the fraternity, nobody would know, but only people that had inside information. So it's kind of very fantastic almost to us that this was happening. So we started getting close to these kids, and they started coming here often and wanting to talk to us and asking us to participate in various events at the college. Then soon after, they started a tournament on Ricardo's name, a dodgeball tournament, which so happens that this coming Monday is the 7th tournament on his name. That they created a fundraiser, not a fundraiser. It's a scholarship on Ricardo's name, which they give annually to one of the kids in the fraternity that meets certain requirements that they came up with. And one of the kind of homework they have to do in order to be given this scholarship is to find out everything they can about Ricardo, read his books, make a presentation. So it's an amazing experience for us. And every year we're invited to go. And the interesting thing is that all his friends that were obviously going to school with him at that time have already graduated, and now it's been a number of years that it's been only kids that we never knew, never had any interaction with, but the movement continues, and this coming Monday we're going again to be part of it. And what we do, we bring Ricardo's books and donate to the fraternity so they can pass on to the kids in school. So the kids are reading the books, they're writing to us, they're coming to talk to us about it. It's so much easier, it seems, to this age group. They seem not to have so much reservations. They seem to believe. They read and they say, yes, it's no big deal. This is Ricardo. So it's an interesting experience for us, of course, when some friends and family themselves don't to this day believe that we are communicating with him. But I think that one of the impetus of Ricardo's writing is so that it's passed to his friends or even to the youth in the schools. He seems to be involved in the spiritual realm in helping these kids incarnate and discarnate. He brings some kids to our meetings that we receive messages from other youth, and they seem to just want to tell how they're feeling and what they're going through. So it's it seems to be a very complex network of work that he's doing, not just through us, but in the spiritual world as well. But we continue to interact with these kids in school, even the ones we never met and never known. And for some reason, as soon as we go there, bonds are formed. These kids, they flock to us. They want to be around us. It's a very interesting experience, truly.
It's so interesting because nowadays our youth, is being challenged because all the values are being revisited, but usually they are just allowed to cut loose in so many ways. So
may I tell you a very quick story here?
Yes.
That just came to mind here. That a year or two after Ricardo's passing, one of the kids in the fraternity committed suicide. Obviously, it was devastating to all the kids in school. And what happened immediately when this happened, they called us. They called us and said, please come, we need you. We need you to be here. We're going to have a memorial service for the school for the kid that committed suicide, and we feel that you should be here. We need your strength. You've been you've been so strong through your loss, and you've taught us so much. And we went, and we were very touched by them wanting to be there for this kid that we didn't know. And to our surprise, the kids were going to the podium and talking about the kid that had passed, and one of them read from a poem from Ricardo's book. He said, I have nothing I can say better than to read this poem from Ricardo's book. They talked a little bit about Ricardo again, and it was the poem of gratitude from his book, Eternal Bones of Love, where it was a message to his friends who had given the memorial to him a couple of years before, and this was a poem he wrote, which is in the book, thanking them for their thoughts and their, messages, good messages to him. That was read in the memorial for this other kid. So this was, to us, an amazing experience, too.
Thank you for sharing this, Sylvia. It's really uplifting to know that Ricardo's work has become an outreach work. It's helping all of us, but we can tell there is a message to youth there. We have a question that came to Kardec Radio's email from Chris Walney, and we're going to share this with you, but we'll give a short break and come back to listen to your answer. As he passed away in his 20s, is there anything in his messages or interaction with you that he shares some form of regret or sorrow or remorse that if he knew in any way, any form, this depth of life that continues in the afterlife, he would have changed, and he wants to share this awareness with other people. Please, let's think about this question, and we'll be right back with you, Claudia and Sylvia. Let's give a short break, and we'll be right back.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Now in English, the book Missionaries of the Light by the Spirit Andrea Luis, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Join the Third Spiritist Forum of New York on September 25th. The theme is, It is Good to Be Good, featuring the keynote speaker, Dr. Stephen Post, renowned and leading scientist on compassion and health, as well as Dr. Petrillo and Dr. Saloni. More information at www.mvscenter.org. That is www.mvscencer.org.
And now we return to our program.
Are you seeking a way to tap into more spiritual you? Try meditation. As the Spirit Joanna DeAngelis says, meditation becomes an effective way to discipline the will. In the meditative state, you calm down your emotions and clarify your discernment, harmonizing your feelings. Take a listen to a clip from the CD entitled Health by Divaldo Franco and Joanna DeAngelis.
So say this: I am life, and a triumphant life. Say it again. And once again. Say, I am happiness in life. Repeat it. I am fulfilled, and so I shall remain. Look at yourself. You are irradiating His light. Again, look at yourself. You are irradiating His light. Breathe it. Hold it. Breathe out. Say to yourself, nothing of a disturbing nature deserves my attention.
If you want to listen to more, you can purchase your own copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org/bookstore.
Dear listener, this is Eternal Bonds of Love, the show that talks about not only the book by Claudio Petrillo through his parents, Sylvia Knoplock and Ricardo Petrillo through Claudio Petrillo and Sylvia Knoplock. They are here with us to say about the power of love, that it remains in the afterlife. Ricardo is teaching us many things, and especially we can say, listening from Sylvia right before the break, the beautiful message that comes to youth. Dr. Petrillo is a practicing physician, and he's also the chairman of the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation at Norwalk Hospital in Connecticut. And Dr. Knoplock is also a practicing physician and a senior attending physician in the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation at also Norwalk Hospital in Connecticut. They're here with us, enlightening our hearts, bringing so much inspiration. And right before the break, we had shared a question from one of our listeners, Chris Walney, from through the email of Kardec Radio, knowing about the message of Ricardo. He passed away when he was young. Has he shared anything regarding to a possibility of any regret or remorse that he would have fixed up now that he knows that life not only continues but is much broader than we can all imagine? Is there anything of the nature out there that he has shared to Sylvia and Claudio?
No. He explicitly said that, he didn't have time to do much wrong, and he didn't. He was he didn't have any regrets of anything. He said clearly that had to happen. If it didn't happen the way it did, it would have happened some other way because of issues of previous lives. And that, but he never carried any regret except, on the other hand, the great connection and the love that the three of us shared during the life had given him a lot of strength, and he was very happy that we held together through his passing, so that we didn't fall into the desperation that many parents do after a child's passing. But never once he reported any regrets of anything he had done in life.
That's so interesting, because when we go to the book Heaven and Hell by Allan Kardec, he shares in part 2 several examples of spirits that passed away, and he, in a very educational manner, he categorizes them in happy spirits, average spirits, suffering spirits, suicides, repentant criminals, hardened spirits, earthly expiation. We can almost tell that Ricardo was in this happy spirit type of mind, because he not only shares the certainty that it is the way it needs to be, but he brings a lot of joy, right? So you had fun moments with him as well.
We are having.
We're still having.
That's good. So you enjoy each other's company.
Oh yeah, he surprises every moment. Every time he writes us a personal letter, which fortunately we have many. And he's always been a politician when young, since very young age. Mm-hmm. And in a very political matter, sometimes he scolds us when we are kind of diverting our attention to our work. And it's always very joyful the way we relate now. It's a continuous process, and what we've learned that even through this process, we're building our eternal bonds of love. They're strengthened. They're being strengthened every moment, and that will never end. That started many years ago, and I think in the second book, Poems for a Better World, in one of the passages he reports a previous incarnation that we were together, and so that through his books we can gather some messages of previous lives that we were together, which give us that sense that of continuity that will not end with our passing, and it will not end with this incarnation.
So, Claudio, though Ricardo so blessedly does not regret anything, but does he often come with advices or things that he would share with the youth, especially with our youth nowadays?
What we seen a lot, especially in our personal messages, that he's telling us that the amount of distractions we have in the world. He was passionate about sports, especially basketball. It was one of his passions, and music and some other things like that kids his age like. And he says it many times again and again that those are distractions. And this is an area that we sometimes even feel a little conflicted, because we are here, we are flesh, we are in the world, we go to the movies, we listen to music, we play sports or we watch sports. And here he's saying, try not to spend so much time on these things because they are distractions. Spend more time outside, of course, of the things you have to do on a day-to-day and work, studying, bettering yourselves in a more spiritual manner. And how I recognize now, he's saying, that all of those were distractions. It's almost like a little bit of a waste of time, but how do we come to terms with that, being that we are in this world and, these are the things that we do. So these are some of the things that we are talking on an ongoing basis with him.
Vanessa, let me add a little story that's interesting. Sylvia and I hold a weekly meeting Sunday here at home in which we open up. We know that there is other spirits to communicate and so on. And we knew by not only Ricardo's telling, because he's part of your organization of that meeting, but also from other mentors, that a large number of spirits are attending our Sunday meetings. And because of the commitment, more and more are coming. So a few months ago when we had a meeting with Divaldo, and he had something to tell us. He said that he saw in our home the walls almost disappearing, and it looked like an enormous hospital in which there were dozens and dozens of young men and women just trying to absorb everything that we read in our teachings and being part of this meeting. that was for us a tremendous accomplishment. Made us feel very good about it. But that's part of his work when you're talking about the youth, not only in this world but in the spirit world as well.
That's interesting. And you're talking about, when you talk about this perception of the walls being so expanded in a hospital, etc., it matches so much with the teachings that Spiritism brings to us, and mediums can actually see it, like we see at the Spirit Society of Baltimore, for example, and many other places where there is true commitment of the heart, and the spirits, as we know, they create these environments. And you're talking about hospital next week, as Kardec Radio is back here on Saturday at 11 a.m., we're going to have a special show about Spiritist Psychiatric Hospitals with Emma Bragdon and her new book, and Dr. Ricardo Bianco, who is going to talk about his experience in Spiritist Psychiatric Hospitals, and the fact that probably we should make ever more efforts to bring this reality to the United States. So do you say that Ricardo and also has, or yourselves, would you have advice to parents who lost their loved ones, or what would you say to them first? Not only to parents, but to anybody who experiences at some point in their lives these quote-unquote loss of loved ones, based on your experience.
Well, what we learned, and again from Ricardo, one of the things he said in actually many of his messages to us, and in the book Eternal Bonds of Love, that it is we never think about the person that has passed. When there is a death and people are grieving, everybody thinks about those that are stayed behind, like us, and how depressed or the suffering that we're going through, and nobody's thinking about the one that has passed, and that all this grieving and desperation and despair can hurt the ones that have passed, and that he has told us that our attitude, our ability to overcome that initial despair and coming to our senses that we have to rebuild our lives, we have to go on, and what can we do to learn something and find something positive on this, that helped him tremendously to adapt to his new reality. And he tells even of some experiences he learned there about other youth that were having a very hard time with the transition because the parents were doing very poorly and could not absolutely handle the situation, how much suffering that brought to him. So he says all along that what we do and the work that we continue to do gives him strength and peace, that he can do what he needs to do and learn what he needs to learn in the work. So that's what I would tell other parents, is that, yes, we are suffering here, but if you do believe or even give a possibility that there is life after death, that we do continue in another form, in another realm, that we have to think about those that we've lost and that how we may be hurting them. So praying for them, wishing them good thoughts, and trying to rebuild our lives. Not that we ever going to forget or in any way, that is a tremendous help to them. So that we even, it's almost like it's part of me being a parent. Don't I want him to be well even after his passing? So I have to do what I have to do for him to be well. The same way that we sacrifice here, that we sometimes try and dampen our feelings so that we don't hurt our children or impress them when they're here, we do the same when they're gone. So that has helped me tremendously. Every time I feel sorry for myself, or, oh, how I miss him today, how I wish he was here, I say, no, that's not right. He is happy. He's telling me he's happy. He's doing well. We are communicating. We have all of these gifts. There is no reason to be in despair. And, of course, to open up for the fact that you may be able to also communicate with your loved one. If you set yourself, you study, and you discipline yourself, and you build good thoughts, then harvest the harmony inside, you may have this blessing as well of communicating.
I would say that the bonds of love that you build with your loved ones that have passed are eternal, never broken, and can be continually strengthened by your actions, by how you conduct yourself towards others, by seeing your loved one in others.
Yes, it's very charitable, we would say, according to the Spiritist teachings, this attitude towards death, to think about the one who passed away and contribute to the transition that happens, and be less selfish thinking about ourselves and becoming proactive in reaching out to them. There is a reach out in Spiritism that people are not used to, but Spiritism is fully aware. It's the reaching out to the spirits. That's why we have these meetings. They also need us to collaborate with them. Claudia and Sylvia, we're going to give a last break of 1 minute and be back with you because we have a caller whom we selected to relay a question to you.
We will return to our program after these messages.
If you have any questions or comments, please call Kardec Radio at 858-769-4705.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Missionaries of the Light by the Spirit Andrea Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today. Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit Andrea Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
And now we return to our program.
Eternal Bonds of Love, not only a book, but a true family experience, shared with you in this first book of a series of many. Dr. Petrillo and Dr. Knobloch are the parents of Ricardo Petrillo. He passed away when he was in his 20s, and the teachings that he shared with us now are life-changing, not only to the family, but to the friends of the fraternity, the relationships in general, and to all of us. Dr. Petrillo and Knobloch are here sharing with us how their lives were truly transformed. And we have a caller with us, Kirsten de Mello, who is here to ask a question to Sylvia and Claudio. Hi, Kirsten. Thank you for being with us and helping at Kardec Radio as well.
Sure, it's such a pleasure, and I'm really enjoying this show today. Hello, Dr. Petrillo and Sylvia. Hi, guys. How are you?
Very good.
My question is that, have you ever considered, I heard Claudio mentioning that, you mentioning as well that you have received several personal messages from him. Have you all ever considered at some point later on down the road publishing these communications that are more on a private level, just to show that for those who perhaps have lost ones, maybe that the connection still exists, or just in general, have you ever considered publishing in a separate book later on down the line?
It's funny that you ask, but because we always talking between ourselves about that. We have dozens and dozens, perhaps hundreds of messages at this point, which we cherish and read and reread, and they're beautiful. Some of them have a lot of private content. others or general. But yes, that would be a big ambition of ours, that eventually we would do that. We kind of, a little bit unsure at this point because of, as I said, there is so much private content in it. But we know that there is a value in sharing those too. So this is definitely a consideration for the future.
Yeah, I think that would be a huge asset. I mean, at some point, if that is in the plans, I think that would be wonderful. And the show guys say it's wonderful. It's very inspiring. I'm a parent as well, and it's very inspiring. You both have shared over the years. The whole team that you guys are working with, spiritual team you're working with, it's wonderful. So thank you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten, for being with us, for relaying these questions. And let's go back to that beautiful moment with Divaldo Franco and Dr. Bernie Siegel in 2008. Can you share, I know you have a great admiration for Divaldo Franco and also Bernie Siegel, who was also, by the way, in our show when we just launched Kardec Radio. He's so funny. Both are not only very knowledgeable and wise, but also very funny. They are humorous. Can you share with us the experience of the putting together of the event, and especially the event in itself, the feedback that people gave, and your interaction with both amazing speakers?
Yeah, there are so many moments that we cherish. I think beginning with our taking Divaldo the day he arrived to Bernie Siegel's home, to introduce both of them so that they could kind of go over the program and who would speak first and some of those things, and but also Divaldo had the chance to knowing Bernie's own home and his private life in a sense. And it was very interesting. One of the moments in which Bernie showed a painting, the drawing of his own spiritual guide that a medium had done while he was speaking to a public in a conference, and so we had that original. His name is George, and George, according to Bernie, has been with him to many talks and conversations, and it was a private aspect of Bernie Siegel that I don't think he has shared with many, and he was sharing with Divaldo that some of his talks he didn't know he was the one doing the talk. So it was that was one of many interesting moments of that meeting.
Anything for you, Sylvia, that you would highlight in this incredible experience?
These two two individuals are very charismatic, obviously in their own way, and wise beyond words. It was just being part of it was very special. Having the honor, the privilege of spending more time with Divaldo. He stayed at our house for the night, and we shared a lot of moments. There are some indescribable moments in our home where he obviously, with his mediumship, he was able to capture Ricardo's presence and told us a lot of things about the work we're doing. We had an amazing experience that we sat down and he received a psychophonic message from Dr. Bezerra de Menezes for us, which it was totally unexpected and we'll cherish for life. So those were unforgettable moments, and we wish we taped the message from Bezerra de Menezes for those that are hearing us, listeners that know who we're talking about. It's a very known doctor from previous centuries in Brazil that became one of the most acclaimed spiritists, and Divaldo receives messages where he's speaks through him, through Divaldo. That was probably, to me, the highlight of the entire weekend. But that's my selfish personal vision. But, of course, the meeting was beyond all our expectations. I had hundreds of patients that attended and other people from the community that to this date talk about it and have asked us again and again to please repeat or have something similar because it was enlightening for the entire community, actually.
That's interesting. So tomorrow it's going to be September 11th, 10 years after the very overwhelming, to say the least, terrorist attack in New York. And when people think about it, of course, we think about the many lives that were spared in that very tragic moment. And we're talking here about eternal bonds of love. So we'd like to wrap up the show today by asking you, Claudio and Silvia, to kindly share with us, based on your experience, how do you think we can contribute with this moment in which people from all over the United States and also in the world are recalling, almost like evoking, those tragic moments and remembering also the loved ones who were lost in that tragedy? What could you tell, and what would probably also Ricardo tell all of us to be focused on what in this moment?
Ricardo had a poem written in Eternal Bonds of Love of a visit that he had made with a group of youngsters that also recently discarnated to Ground Zero just a few years after the attack. But I think the main message in there is that those people are not lost. They are alive and with us. That the most important message is that tragedy doesn't build any hatred, any anger in our hearts, any sense of revenge, but a sense of forgiveness, so that we don't foment further wars, further violence, as violence will generate violence. That we understand we don't have to love those that have hurt us, but at least a sense of forgiveness because they are troubled themselves. But the idea of not building hatred in our hearts, because that will bounce back and harm us as well spiritually.
Yes, it's a message of forgiveness, and recently we had a beautiful show with Dr. Lydia Temoshak on the science of forgiveness. Forgiveness is so tangible that it changes our physiology. It can boost our health and help us undergo the distresses of life with much ease. So, Silvia and Claudio, we are so honored and blessed and thankful that you've spent this almost 2 hours with us, sharing your personal lives and the many teachings you have acquired, and especially how much this framework of Spiritism has helped you undergo your struggles and also now is helping so many others. Please make your final comments to our dear listener.
I think the final comments are related to the title of the first book, Eternal Bonds of Love, and that the more you nourish the love you have towards the ones that are around you, the more you build the strength to share that with more and more people until we ultimately reach a sense that Jesus gave us in his talks, and he was able to encompass the love through entire humanity. And that life doesn't end. it continues.
Yes. So thank you so much, Sylvia, for being with us. Thank you also, Claudia, for being with us. And we also thank Ricardo for being with us here today, for inspiring us with his own experience, for his maturity. And Kardec Radio, dear listener, is here to teach us, as tomorrow people are thinking about the ones who crossed over. We want to remind you that there are prayers in the Gospel according to Spiritism that Kardec shared with us to illuminate our minds. Because as he says in chapter 28, prayer for someone who dies or died. Prayers for spirits who have just left the earth do not only have the purpose of providing them with a testimony of our sympathy, but they also have the effect of helping their soul's disengagement. Therefore, shortening the state of confusion that always follows the separation and rendering the awakening more peaceful. Moreover, as in any other circumstance, the prayer's effectiveness lies in the sincerity of the thought and not in the abundance of words spoken more or less pompously and in which the heart frequently takes no part. So, Kardec shares a prayer that now we want to finish this program with this very prayer. So let us pray now. Pray for those who died today or yesterday or 10 years ago in the September 11 attack. Let us pray for them now, according to Allan Kardec's instructions. Almighty Lord, may your mercy extend over our brothers who have just left earth behind. May your light shine on their eyes. Keep them from darkness. Open their eyes and ears. May your good spirit envelop them and enable them to hear words of hope and peace. Lord, as unworthy as we are, we dare employ your merciful indulgence on behalf of this one of our brothers who has been called from exile. Let his return be like that of the prodigal son. O God, forget the wrongs that he might have committed, and remember only the good he might have done. Your justice is immutable, we know, but your love is great. We ask you to attenuate your justice through the fount of goodness that emanates from you. May the light shine on you, my brother, who has left the earth behind. May the good spirits of the Lord descend upon you, envelop you, and help you rid yourself of your earthly bonds. Understand and behold the grandeur of our Lord. Yield without complaint to his justice, but never despair of his mercy. O brothers of ours, may a true return to your paths open to you the portals to the future and enable you to understand the wrongs you are leaving behind and the work that remains for you to repair them. May God forgive you, and may good spirits uphold and encourage you. Your brothers and sisters on earth shall pray for you, and they ask that you pray for them. Dear listener, this is Kardec Radio, bringing hope, consolation, and much love to you. After all, the ties of affection are eternal, eternal bonds of love. Truly grateful for our dear friends, Dr. Claudio Petrillo, Dr. Silvia Noplock, and the one that we already love, Ricardo Noplock Petrillo. Our gratitude to them, and most of all, remember, next Saturday, September the 17th, we have Spirit Psychiatric Hospitals, a whole new understanding on mental illness with Dr. Emma Bragdon and her whole new book about it, and Dr. Ricardo Bianco and his experience as a psychologist in a Spirit Psychiatric Hospital. Come back, listen, rejoice, and live a much better life.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio. broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.